Okay, then it's about to start. It's about to start. Hi, how are
Awesome.
you?
I'm good and you. I'm good and you.
I'm good, thank you. So let me just introduce the show. Welcome everybody to Dead Radio once again. And once again, I've got another special guest who
You're
will
kind.
introduce herself, I don't like introducing people because I don't want to um introduce them the incorrect way, you know what I mean? So I'd just like let you get right into it. What's your name and what do you do?
That's very kind of you. Thanks for having me. It's very unexpected, but I'm
I
hugely
know.
flattered. Hugely flattered. So my name's Jana Hamman. I do many things, but the
You
I guess the
definitely
thing that
do.
I'm, I guess the thing that I'm most, or my main business is I've got a sort of creative studio called Jana+Koos.
Hmm.
That's been going for ages with my business partner and friend, Koos Groenewald.
Right.
And other than that, I'm an artist. I work with Kalashnikov Gallery. I do a lot of sort of abstract digital art. And then recently also started a fashion brand called Beau Beau,
Right.
sort of a local South African unisex brand,
Okay. 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 So
amongst
wait,
other
you
things.
say it's a you say it's a unisex brand, but I found an article online that classified it as a um one of the very few streetwear brands for women.
Well, it's funny because that's kind of it evolved very naturally. It was never a big plan. I think it
Right.
was it's with a friend of mine, Paige Smith, in Cape Town, and that's where all the
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing happens. But it started as a collection that I was doing for her brand called Paige Smith. So she's been in the business forever, and they've got a big factory in Cape Town. And then
Right.
the work was so specific, and it just what came out just had such a specific sort of, I guess, personality and brand and there was so
Mm-hmm.
much of it that we decided, we've done all this work and we're doing all these items and they all seem to fit in a collection that feels quite specific. Let's
Right.
turn it into a brand. And so essentially what it was we weren't even being specific about whether it's going to be male or female. We literally wanted to make
Mm-hmm.
something that was felt like us, which was like a
Right.
trans seasonal wardrobe that's got items that are super, not necessarily trendy, but things that can be dressed up and down, that can last you forever, that are well
Essentials,
made,
basically.
essentials
Yeah.
that are like really well considered in sort of cut. And we our idea in the beginning was, can we make a wardrobe of items that you would never have to add to, which is
Right.
ironic because both her and I are constantly adding to our wardrobes. We're not minimalist at all. It's not our personality, but maybe it's who we were attempting to be. But that's how it sort of
Right.
started. And so I guess it was just our signature, and that's what came out of it. And then when it was released and it got picked up, we just realized how many um, guys were sort of like picking it up
Interested
and,
in what
and,
you
and
guys are doing.
wearing it and
Right.
styling it their way. I guess the thing is, my personal style is quite masculine, and I often buy men's clothes. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not that
You
surprising
guys
to
are
me.
lucky enough to do that.
Yes, we're lucky enough to do that. Except shoes, I have a big issue with sneakers that are always. I always feel like there's substandard versions of sneakers brought out and colorways brought out in female shoes. So we don't
Right.
always.
Definitely.
But
Look.
yeah, so that's how it sort of started, and that's why I say it's like this growing, uh, metamorphic brand and process, which has been quite nice for me to work on, because normally what I do in my day-to-day business is so strategic. It needs to be figured out
Mm,
upfront what it's going to be, what it's going to say, who's it going to be for. It was nice to just create, and I think that's why it's nice to have these other avenues, because you can do things that are
right.
just for yourself, and they can mold and grow and change and be whatever. It's just
100%
for you at the end of the day,
without you
actually.
having like an impact on it. 100%. I totally get that. So now, before we get like into what you do, which is a lot of stuff, I need to I need to just like, because I like figuring out not necessarily, okay, I like figuring out people, but at the same time I like getting to know a person's background, because their background low key has a way of having an influence and an impact on who they are today. You know what I mean? So, where you from and where did you grow up, and how did this art where did this art influence come from?
So I'm originally from Pretoria, and I
Okay.
have I'm Afrikaans. I've got Afrikaans parents, but I'm kind of one of the lucky Afrikaners who have really liberal parents, and they decided quite young on that they were putting all their kids in English schools. They wanted their kids to be in mixed schools as much as possible, and yeah, so it was. I didn't grow up with a very strong Afrikaans heritage at all. Other than the
Right.
fact that we spoke it to our grandparents. I always joke because I say I started speaking Afrikaans when I met Koos in university. That's when, other than to my
Right.
grandmother, that's when I started speaking Afrikaans. And that was my only real connection to the sort of heritage at all. And my dad's actually got a graphic design studio that he's had for years and years in Pretoria, and both my parents are very artistic. My dad's an amazing artist, and I think that you're
Mm,
super blessed if you sort of grow up with a liberal and very creative parent, because
right.
that's it's just something that flows through you. My dad's always been
Right.
super into music and into cooking and into art, and he's really an amazing artist. I mean, he could do it full time, and he should do it full time, and we keep trying to get him to do it full time, but um, that's where it sort of came from.
This all
It's just
started. Right.
it was just always pushed, and I think I'm also lucky because I didn't have parents who sort of forced me to do something. It was difficult for me when I left school. I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I actually wanted to get into fashion, and I and
Right.
I started applying for it, and then I pulled out of it because I sort of thought that it might be very limited doing fashion in South Africa. And sometimes I regret
Mm-hmm.
it because I do feel like if it was the thing that I had the one focus for, that's probably like my one true love. I think that's what
Right.
I do without it ever feeling like work. That's the one thing I do that never feels like work. And it
Uh-huh.
comes quite easy. But at the time, I thought that sort of design and the course is called information design in Pretoria. I thought that might be a broader base to be able
Mm.
to do different sort of
Create.
of design from,
Right.
and it has out that way. It's because I've got that foundation that I'm able to quite comfortably and quite confidently go into different areas. Like Chris and I recently started doing photography. We do a lot of creative direction and art direction. So even within our business, there's a lot of different facets. And I think it just all
Right.
comes from having a sort of very base level knowledge of graphic design, and that knowledge turns into something that's quite intuitive. So
Right.
yeah, that's my background.
In terms of you guys, because what I've noticed is what I've also noticed that a lot of what you guys do is in house. It's like a lot of stuff is what either you do or Koos does, and I know to a certain degree that makes life very easier because you know exactly what you want out of something that you're taking a picture of, or something that you're designing, or something that you're creating. So now, is that how you guys have put it all together? Have you guys like told each other that if there's something you need to teach each other or teach yourself that specific skill set?
I think it's our sort of
Or does it just happen?
it's just kind of happened that way. And I often think that it's important to mention that, you know, what we see is what looks like people that have their shit together. All of us are looking at each
Right.
other and look like we have our shit together. But all of us are sort of, Chris and I especially, we've been on a never-ending journey of just evolution, and most of it has been due to necessity, not due to something that we decided or that we wanted. We sort of hit the ground running. We worked in advertising, and it was also a really
Right.
nice foundation for us. But you know, the lifestyle is extremely hectic and it's extremely demanding, and we were missing a lot of the just control. And so we started doing our own thing. But when you do your own business, you're not. It's not the best case scenario. You're just doing whatever
Yeah.
you can to get by. Sometimes we
Right.
still are just doing
Right.
whatever we can to get by. It's not a best case scenario. You show the best of that comes out of it, but
Hmm.
it's really a sort of, it's been a daily, monthly, yearly, like just hustling. It really has been a big hustle for us. Um,
Right.
so there goes my
Whoa.
plug. Um,
Sorry about
I've got
that.
like super small ears, so these things never stay in my ears. Very upsetting. But anyways, yeah, I think a lot of the other stuff we started doing was on the one hand, the more we made a name for ourselves because we just sort of did a lot of side projects. And I've done a lot of talking
Right.
on this. It's really important. You know, if the side projects are the briefs that you will end up getting one day, but they're not going to be, no one's getting the perfect brief. No one has the perfect client
Right.
coming to you with the absolutely perfect thing. You make the best of it that you possibly can, but those perfect briefs are unicorns. They don't actually exist, you know? So
Right.
for us, I think
But
we
how's it that
started
all
working
your
in,
work looked like you had perfect briefs? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but all the work you guys get, the way you guys compile them, make them look like you guys are given the brief exactly like that.
yeah,
You know
no,
what I
look,
mean? Like
we're just actually very old. We've been doing this for a very long time. And now the compilation of our work looks that way, you know, it's like, it's little
Mm,
baby steps and little baby steps. And I think what's been nice in terms of getting older, I mean, Chris and I met each other literally 15, 16 years ago in
right,
university, and we started working together from that moment. And even when we moved to different agencies, we worked together, and we just found that the more we worked together, the stronger our work sort of was, and we started really being able to hone in like this two very different skill sets.
right,
But I think to answer your question, you know, we're we've always been very invested in sort of the arts and popular culture and things that we just love outside of branding, which has sort of become largely what we do these days. And
right,
what was really important to us was just doing these projects that were experiments to us, you know. And it was our friends
right.
putting out LPs that they needed covers for, and it was like music shows. Weirdly enough, a lot of it was in music, you know. But what was nice is you get to
Mm-hmm,
experiment and you get to push the boundaries. And because of
mm-hmm.
that work, people wanting work like that. Started coming to us, and we started becoming known for the sort of unexpected approach to what you're going to get. And now
Right.
a lot of that is what people want. You know, there's not necessarily a specific look that you can attach to us, but you can definitely feel when we've worked on something, or we get told that a lot. um
100%.
yeah, and I think it's when you have clients who are coming to you because they want to be pushed and they want their brands to be pushed, and you've done a lot of the groundwork with your personal work and with your art and with your illustration
Mm-hmm.
and with your design that shows that that's what you're about, then you do start getting more work that way.
Right.
But you know,
'Cause-
it's tricky sometimes. It's pushing. It's really a real internal struggle with a client to push them. um,
right.
some briefs come to you and they're already pushed, you know. So I guess
I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean because there's times when I work on campaigns with other brands and you propose a specific idea that you think is um, like perfect and they think it's a bit too much for their brands. I remember the last work I did, the company told me that they they can't put the word dead next to their branding because that will give their consumer the thinking that the branding is dead, and it kind of confused me in such a sense that why would you want to collaborate with me if that's how you're perceiving what is proposed? You know what I mean? Because
totally.
that's already doesn't make sense.
I know. I must say, this is something that I'm quite grateful that I don't work in advertising for anymore, because it does feel like a lot of this strategy assumes that people think in a very dumb
In
way.
one
You know,
specific way,
if
100%.
he doesn't think that, if he saying that to you doesn't really think that, why would anyone else? Like, give people a bit of credit, you
100%.
know? Like, humans are not
Yeah.
that dumb. And that's why the brands that are doing interesting things like yourself and that have been kind of true to what they are trying to achieve and to themselves, actually, essentially, is have been so successful, you know, because there's just such a strong DNA of doing your own thing
Self.
regardless of the man happening there. And we resonate with that a lot. You know, we've made a lot of decisions that was for the kind of work we believe in doing over and above just large sums of money. And those are very difficult decisions to make when you are kind of like living
Right.
hand to mouth, you know, like most creatives are.
100%.
Um, but that keeps your DNA strong. And we've gone off the path. We sort of started getting a lot of work about 5 years ago that
Right.
was rather from hearsay than people knowing our work. So people would ask who to
Mm-hmm.
work with, and they'd work with us, and their expectations was just very conventional. And we realized that because, knowing us intimately in our work is actually more important than us making it big and turning into this big agency. And suddenly we were in this machine of working that wasn't actually fitting with us. So sometimes you got to
Right.
know. Sometimes the cherry
What you
that's
want.
kind of dangled, the carrot that's dangled, is uh, could be quite sweet, but might not be your kind of sweet.
100%. I totally get exactly what you mean. So it's all about basically knowing what you want at the end, in the spite of getting there very quickly, which is how I think a lot of people get lost. I mean, a lot. I to
100%.
myself, I think it was either last year, the year before last, where I was starting. So there was a period where a lot of brands, international, not necessarily international brands, but a lot of campaigns were coming our way when this whole campaign thing was a big thing. And we had a lot of campaigns. And, when you get a campaign, it's a lot of money right now.
Totally.
You know what I mean? It's a
Totally.
lot
It's
of
not that
right now.
easy to say
So
no.
now, exactly. So it got to a point where there's a thing of, I started to angle the brand in such a way that it was looking glamorous to the people that could talk to us for campaigns. And it happened one day where I had to pause and I had to really sit down and think about it and ask myself if I'm doing this to get campaigns and to get collaborations with international brands, or if I'm doing this for brands to come to us knowing very well that this is what we do and this is what we want, not necessarily because we have this many followers and we're interlinked with youth culture and whatever and whatnot. And that's when I told myself that it's actually more fulfilling when you do something that's 100% in line with your brand and what you want at the end of the day. So for you to say that, it really makes a lot of sense, because I could see myself getting lost in that. I started to think about, how should I start posting on Instagram? How should I start designing clothes so that these people find it cool? And at the end of the day, you need to understand that those people find you cool for your mind, and they're not finding you cool because you're trying to make something for them to find cool. Do you get what I mean? So
Totally, totally. And you know what I can say is that you'll make those mistakes. We've bumped our head. Chris and I always laugh about this because we really do feel like we've bumped our head in every way that you can bump your head when you intuitively feel where you're going, but you don't have it mapped out on paper. You just know what's
yeah.
you and what's not you. But you
Hmm.
know, there are times when you need that money and you have to be less you to get it. And then you hate
Yeah.
yourself. And trust me, there's a lot of stuff on the internet that I truly wish I could erase. You know, I've made a lot of
Just, do you mind me
embarrassing
asking what?
mistakes.
Do you mind me
No,
asking
I will
what?
never tell you. I will never tell you. But but trust me, some mistakes, unfortunately, with the internet age, are sort of they're like they live there for life. But I do think that
Yeah.
nothing is a straight line. I think that that's if you learn anything in this life, it's that nothing is a straight line. Uncontrollable things are going to happen, and you're going to, as long as you veer back to that line that you're on, and that path that you're on, and what feels inherently the most right, that's fine.
Hmm.
Majority
Hmm.
of what you do will speak to you then. A little bit of things here and there won't, but no one knows the context of those situations either. Um,
Right.
you kind of when it's been too far. And I think what is nice with getting older is that when in the beginning you get big opportunities and you without you are so flattered that without even giving it a second thought, you say yes, you're in, you sign on the dotted line, you don't care about the payment terms. And I think what's been nicer about growing up and growing more confident in your ability and in what you stand for and who you are and the type of work you do and
Right.
what your brand's real value is,
Hmm.
you start also having your own terms and conditions and being able to negotiate and being able to. I mean, I always tell people our terms and conditions, we never used to have terms and conditions, and now they are like 7 pages long, because we've bumped our
Yeah.
head with every possible uh, thing that's
But
come
you
our
need
way.
to bump your head in order to know what works and what doesn't work, right? So you just don't have
Totally.
terms and conditions without knowing why you have that terms and condition,
And
basically.
you're gonna do dumb things. It's not the nothing can you actually can't if you've sort of built a brand that's really got integrity, and that your personality, especially like in your case, is so intrinsically linked to, it's not that easy to take. You can have a few fuck ups,
Right.
like, it's really not that easy to taint, actually. um like, they're like living human things. At the end of the day, we make our mistakes. We go through our teenage years. We learn, and we still end up like getting to what
100%.
right, and feeling comfortable in ourselves. Like, that's the nicest thing that happens with sort of time, is that you make all the mistakes, but all of them come with a little bit more understanding and a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more confidence.
Right.
And yeah, I think the path we've chosen, and I've chosen as well, is just like, you'll always be learning and you'll always be growing, and we try to be able to adapt as much as possible. I think I mean,
That's the
being
name of the game.
one or two people and different collaborations doing things, I think can be very taxing, because you just feel like you're never not working. That's how I feel.
Right.
Sorry for myself in that
Yeah.
aspect. I can get
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, I just don't see myself as a necessarily a manager of a lot of human beings. And we'll do big projects, but we like to put teams together that are interesting. And we've always what's been nice is we've always worked with startups. In the beginning, it's sort of guys with no real budget that are coming to you, and they just want something cool. They're happy for anything that you do. And you can
Right.
start in, Simon and Mary is a very good example of a client like that.
Yeah. You guys
He came to
You
us
guys been working with Simon and Mary.
from the very first day. He came to us and he wanted a logo, and he was in his dad's factory, was starting this small little brand. No one gave him
Yeah.
much notice, like it was him keeping himself busy. And he wanted to name it after his grandparents, and he wanted to do a
Yeah.
brand inside of this factory. That factory was just running sort of mass exports and huge runs of product. He wanted to start a brand rather than just products. And we went to the factory, we saw this work, and it's like this collaboration was just meant to be. It's like, we'll probably work
Right.
together for some capacity, even though both of us grow and we change. Like, the value that's come both ways, from him having I guess the mindset to just let us do our thing and experiment, and for us having the right kind of brand to like really
Right.
flexibility, has been like amazing. I
Wow.
got
Wow. Yeah,
sidetracked
because
there on my actual
I had a
question.
meeting with don't worry about it. It's really cool. Don't worry about it. So I, a lot of
That's
people
not like
don't
that.
know this, but I only discovered, well, I can't say you guys, but I only discovered you when you DM'd me, which happened like after my very first lookbook, and I was quite shocked because I mean, the story how this lookbook got into between 10 and 5 is really like a crazy story, and I tell everyone the story. So I was at school, downstairs, architecture, and I was finishing my work. It's after hours, long nights, and I was doing my work, and upstairs there's a gallery at FADA, so it's Faculty of Art and Design School at UJ. So there's a gallery, and they're showcasing, and they had a couple of competitions. So a friend comes downstairs and he calls me and he's like, "Yo, there's free wine." So we used to go up there just to get like free wine, because there's always free red wine because it's a
As you do.
gallery. So cool. I went upstairs for the free wine. Get there. I get there now. There's a competition. They're asking people to bring their portfolios. People to bring their portfolios so they can see their work and their direction and whatnot. So I asked the friend next to me, "Yo, do you think I should just bring out my lookbook?" My lookbook was about a week old by then, and he's like, "Yeah, you should," because
Wow.
I turned it into a Zion, which was 100% inspired by Kanye West. Because he's like one of the only artists I knew around that time that actually brought out a Zion, or zine, whatever people call it. Cool,
Yeah.
bring it up. These people see it. These people really love it. They like it. They're into it. Now they wanna. Now I actually win. I win get an article. A couple of days after that, you DM'd me and you were asking if I was interested in interning, whatnot. So I was like confused at that point, like, who the hell is this lady
I almost forgot
thinking I
about
want to
that.
intern? I mean,
It's
yeah,
been a
I was
while.
like stoked. So it's been a while. So now I talked to my friend. I'm like, yo, so my friends asked me how's the lookbook going, whatnot, and I tell him what happened. I told him, and he was stoked. He was like, what? Jana+Koos DM'd you? I was like, yeah. He's like, are you serious? I was like, yeah, dude, why? And then he actually explained to me what you guys actually do. And this is like 5 years ago. So now I'm still shocked and confused, like, what the hell? And
What is happening?
then
I just
I
wanted a
end up
glass of
doing a
red wine.
little bit of research here and there. You know what I mean? I end up doing some research and then I actually see that you guys are like do a lot of stuff. And I'm still today, like when I was on your site the other day, and I'm going through all the work that you guys have done, and it's like tons and tons and tons and tons and tons. So now, when was your first exhibition? Like when did you guys, because I know you guys turned 10 years old this year. Am I correct? Because you guys started, I think, in
Yes.
2010.
Yes, I think we did 20.
Yes.
It's either 2010 or 2011.
Okay.
But we're
Okay.
somewhere between. But I do think last year we were 9 years. I think this is our 10th year. Crazy
So
to believe.
what is your first body of work? Like what is your guys' first body of work together, and that you guys can put the Jana+Koos stamp on it, as in like this is the studio's work.
Um, I think, I guess, I think Simon and Mary has to get a mention here because that does feel like that started a very long time ago. That's probably at least 7 or 8 years ago.
Right.
If I think about the first lookbook, and that was like, we were just asking our friends. We thought it would be cool to shoot. I mean, again, this is just shows you we don't have the luxury of going to a casting agent and having this concept and getting casting and getting a big production company to shoot it. We had to kind of, his Dean's girlfriend's girlfriend and
Right.
her boyfriend at the time shot the lookbook. We asked all our friends who happened to just be like really cool creatives, that we wanted to sort of bring in like a really inherently Joburg feeling to this brand. It's been there for years and
Right.
years. It's like 4
Right.
generations of Johannesburg, and we felt like there was definitely a time in Joburg when it was like on fire creatively, and it felt like everyone.
Right.
You'll agree with me. Like 5 years ago, it felt like it was just
Five,
you. You were
6 years ago. Yeah,
you
100%.
you were in the epicenter of like magic, and you thought it would last forever. Um, and
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 it
people often
didn't.
say to me, "Didn't you just get old?" Which is very
Unfortunately.
possible, but I just got old. But I do feel like
Nah, you're
the
very
music
rude.
scene,
No. It's not there anymore. It's not there anymore.
the
Like I
music
don't think
scene, people were
people
pushing.
are not free spirited anymore. Yeah.
People
Yeah.
were free spirited, and they were pushing and they were experimenting. And look, I think the world has become a different place, and it's made people quite nervous to experiment and to just go out there and just
Yes.
whatever. I think there's a lot of kind of thinking before just being able to artistically create.
True.
But it was at a time when
100%.
we felt like Joburg should really be on an international scale. And it was the right time for this brand. It was the right product for the right people. We could just our friends, we just asked them, if in exchange for hats, would you be in the shoot? We want people who are like the real creatives of Joburg to represent this brand. And what was nice about that is it started this following of sort of ambassadors without us ever trying it to be that. If the product speaks to
Right.
you and you get the right person involved, and we've always felt strongly about that kind of collaboration. It's the right person and the
Right.
right product. And a lot of those that relationship lasts forever. So that was a big one. Another one I can kind of feels like quintessentially what we were sort of doing was an exhibition that we did. Again, this was in exchange for gallery space. So there was a
Right.
gallery at 44 in Jutta Street called Room Gallery,
Right.
and they
Right.
wanted an identity done. They wanted a logo, and they said to us, they can't pay us, but they can give us an exchange of a month-long exhibition. And
Oh,
that's where the
crazy.
whole, yeah, so that's where the kind of, it's nice to have an opportunity like that. It forces you to take certain things seriously and finish a body of work, and I think from an art point of view, that's sort of where the Joburg hates you
I was
things
literally
started.
about to ask about that. I was literally about to ask you about Joburg Hates You because that's the first. I didn't even know you guys were behind that. I think I saw it in Anthea's office, and I was very like, "Yo, what is this thing going on? Like, what is Joburg upside down heart, black heart mean?"
Stabbed heart.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I was like confused, like, "What the hell does this thing mean?" And she explained it to me, and I was like, "Wow, okay, that's cool." And then I actually found more info about it, and I was actually like very shocked. Like, yo, you guys came up with that in like 2013, if I'm not mistaken. And what I really liked about what you guys did is that there's t-shirts and there was what's this thing called? I can't say paintings. What is it called? What is it called?
Like a print, like a print.
Well, a poster,
Print.
like a print that can hang up on your wall. And what I find very important about the print is that the print obviously is going to live much more longer than the t-shirt. You know what I mean? If anyone steps into a space and the print is there, I'm definitely asking about the print. And when you're doing a project for the first few times, that's the kind of awareness you need. You need awareness that doesn't really strike you as awareness.
Totally. And
So
something that,
where did JVC history come from?
geez, you know, I think when we kind of decided to do an exhibition, we had this thought of doing something around Joburg. Again, we were very sort of our work was starting to be very strongly connected to Johannesburg, and we would get a lot of clients
Right.
coming to us and saying, "We've heard that if we want to do work that feels like Joburg, we need to work with you."
And now
So
it's coming to you.
yeah,
Crazy.
and
These
I
are people
think
from
we were
Pretoria. That's wild.
yeah, and I think the thing is like we actually went to Cape Town early on and we tried to get work there, and our work just didn't resonate with anyone. It was Cape Town's work is so, especially from a design point of view, is so
Niche.
well crafted
Mm-hmm.
and well thought out, and our work to a large extent is quite raw and quite there's a level of unfinishedness and a level of experimentation that sort of comes into a lot of what we do and into our approach. So we were just very tied to Joburg and we loved it. And I guess, if you move from somewhere to Joburg, then you are really recognizing it for what it is. And you look at it in a different
Right.
way. If you're not born and bred here, you really do. And it was like such an exciting place for us. And the energy at that stage was really amazing. And I think we decided to call our exhibition City of Gold Diggers. And
Right.
we just thought it was funny because it kind of was like about everyone that migrates to Joburg to kind of hustle and like make it. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of limit ourselves to just working in gold and black. So there was a lot of reasons around that, and we just started having some ideas. And then one day we were just talking, and we said, if you had to just describe Joburg in a city, you'd never have a T-shirt like the "I Love New York" T-shirt, because Joburg is not a very
Right.
welcoming place. It doesn't give a fuck what you think
Yeah.
about it. It's
It
quite
doesn't at
it
all.
can it can really kick your ass. It's quite
Mm-hmm.
brutal in many ways, and it's quite ugly to the untrained eye. And you don't just land here like you land in Cape Town and you immediately fall in love. It makes you work
100%.
for it. So our version of that would be Joburg hates you. And if you're from Joburg, you get that. It's a joke. There's a humor behind it. Like you get it. She hates you.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, that's a good
it,
one.
it's amazing because we then had an opportunity with a friend that is a random American guy actually that Koos met at a bachelor's, and he just sort of became friends with this guy because this guy was down from America and didn't really know anyone at this bachelor's. And then he ended up saying he wants to do like this sort of art collective, and he wants us to be one of the artists, and he wants to sort of instigate the whole thing, but he wants us to come to New York and do an exhibition there, and he'll find a
Oh,
gallery.
crazy.
So this thing kind of grew, and we were just like, well, let's take the concept of Joburg hates you and like just explode it and bring Joburg to New York, and see how it goes. I mean, we had
Right.
literally nothing to do. We don't have a single contact there. It was the first time we'd been. And he ended up actually getting a space on the Bowery that was where Kanye West had done a pop-up like 2 weeks before. But it's like a very, very low-key, cheap, it was like there's nothing cool or significant about it. But when I found that out, I was quite
Right.
surprised. And we just took it further. We had this one sort of print that was this raining gold teeth, and just because
Right.
of all the gold teeth you see, like everyone wants to just show a bit of their gold, even if it's just like something in your tooth. Like we
You want to show it.
we not subtle. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
wealth and job, on whatever degree, you just want to, you just catch that flash of gold if you're here. You know, everyone's just trying to show you their
Yeah.
flash of gold.
Yeah.
Anyways, we had raining gold teeth, and we actually smuggled. We had a tooth technician help us, and he made like actual molds of human teeth, and we made 1,000 of those, and we sprayed them
Crazy.
gold, and we hung them one by one like raindrops in this gallery. So that was
Oh my
one of
gosh.
this like gallery of raining gold teeth. It was actually amazing. Um, and then a lot of the prints and like our new sort of level 2 upping of the prints and things like that. But we were like and we sort of fixed up the Joburg Hates You from the initial print. We just like made it a little bit more
Mm.
big, and then we had some T-shirts there just as collateral to the exhibition, and we were just blown away by the amount of people that came to this exhibition. I mean, we were like, cool, it's going to be us, and at least we'll have done it. It was like a cool thing
Five
to do.
people. Yeah.
Friend, yeah, like little 5 people that maybe know somebody that knows us, but everyone who heard that there was, I think because it was a Joburg thing, and everyone who was homesick, there was so many South Africans that came. People came from so far away. There were so many people just walking past that walked in because this thing just looked wild, you know. So
Wow.
it was
Wow,
a
that's
really
intense.
amazing experience for us, and it's a pity that it feels to us like it was quite lost to actual Joburg, and it was like really, I guess, in our life,
Mm-hmm.
so significant and so just amazing. It was just amazing that this thing happened, and it kind of like made me love New York in the way that I think people do, because like I don't think if we had done the same thing here, it would have had the same response. You know, I think
Right.
there's people are like they're like open to support a real hustle there, and I think that's what gets you about that city. You know.
Yeah.
So that's also, and I mean the t-shirts ended up becoming a whole thing. Like everyone wanted a t-shirt. We were actually just making them as some collateral on the side. You know, we did the
Yeah.
same thing. We did an optometrist in Norwood last year or the year before, and we just did some t-shirts just of these old sort of oil paintings with these new retro glasses on, and it was just so that there's a rail of collateral hanging in the store. It was just to make the store a bit
Yeah.
cooler. People were calling me non-stop to find out where to get these t-shirts, you know, and like they were driving to the optometrist to buy t-shirts. So it was sometimes it
Isn't
is
that the same thing that happened in Now You See Me?
that is Now You See
Didn't
Me.
the same thing happen?
That,
Oh, yeah. Actually, I've heard the story before where
I'm like, I don't
people
know why we
actually
don't just
wanted just to rail there.
t-shirt.
That means you guys have a good eye. I mean, it really means you have a good eye. So branding,
Mm.
like why branding? Because you guys are very big on branding. Trust me. I know you know that too. Like you're very huge on branding. You, I just know something that you guys have worked on. If someone says you guys have worked on, you just need to look at how the branding is, and the branding is always spot on. What's the importance of branding and
You
why
know, to be honest,
branding?
when we started, we were just doing whatever we could do to make money. And
Right.
we we had one success, and it kind of just turned into another. And we often talk about it, but we're like, you know, it's not necessarily what we decided we wanted to do. We didn't decide like we
Mm,
love branding, that's what we want to do. And often we try and like backstep out of it a bit and like try and do some other things, you know. um, because the thing about branding is it doesn't really ever end. You create something, but that thing always needs to be fed, and we're only 2 people. it's
needs to
it's
live
like,
on. Yes.
and the way we work as sort of like highly involved consultants, we have to step away at some point, and it's just becoming harder and harder to do that, because the bigger the thing becomes, the more it needs to be fed. You know, like there needs to constantly be new t-shirts going into Now You See Me if they're doing so well, for argument's sake. So even just on a little
Right.
scale. So
Yeah.
I mean, what's it about it? Like yeah, like most things, we didn't think it through. It was something that we fell into, and the more we did, the more we got, and the more we got, the more we got. Um, but I think for us,
Uh-huh.
what we kind of really always try and do is create something that's true to the person that's doing that thing. It's not,
Right.
there will always be a bit of us in these things, but first and foremost, it's about the person doing it, because that personality is what's going to flow through it. And it's just about, for us, we always
Right.
say, it's at the end of the day, it's just getting this personality to feel authentic to whose personality it is,
Mm-hmm.
the person behind the
Mm-hmm.
brand or the service or the
Mm-hmm.
product. And I guess we, like I mentioned before, we sort of did start with a lot of younger friends and friends of friends and startups. And so it was easy, and it
Very
just happened
organic.
naturally. Yeah, and it was people that we knew, so we understood them quite well. Um, but it's
Right.
putting a human element to something that thing can live up to for the rest of its life,
Mm,
which is
mm.
not easy.
That-
But I think that's what we
It's
try and do.
not.
We don't really come from a branding background, so it's not like our approach or our way, or we don't do these massive brand bibles. We've got we like things to be able to move and grow, and the tighter they
Right.
are, the harder they do that. So we prefer to be more in
Mm-hmm.
control, because we know where it can't push to. But I definitely think at some point we're going to reach a cap of how much work a human being can do in one day, being connected to all these
Definitely.
different ones. Um,
Again, I thought
yeah,
with the growth of the internet, right? With the obviously back 10 years ago, the internet wasn't as significant as it is today, like in terms of social media, in terms of online presence, and you getting most of your work contacts or contracts online. Where is your guys' biggest, like, where you guys get your biggest contracts? Like, where do you guys get most of your work? Is it through word of mouth? Is it through your last work? Is it through
uh,
your online? Is it through your Instagram?
it's definitely not through our online or our Instagram. We are very bad at our own brand, and investing the kind
Mm-hmm.
of time in it that it needs. Our website is outdated. We don't even have business cards, and
Well,
our Instagram was never set up as a business. It was just set up to have, and most of it is us. It's like social. There's no, like, now I do a lot of people's sort of guidelines for their Instagram accounts when we do brands, and you just realize, you
right.
know, just how different your own one is.
You're not
But
doing
I
half
also
the
think
things you're telling them to do.
I'm not doing any of the things I tell anyone to do. That's the honest truth. But I think, again, we also say, like, if I don't want to create something where people are too scared to touch their own brand, then you've done something wrong. You must feel comfortable to run your own social
Right,
media. I can give you some advice on, like, what could look nice, whatever. I'm not a
right.
social media expert either, but just in terms of, when as people are getting more slick with their posts and with their setting up their accounts, like, normally what we try and help with is just that there's 12 posts up there when you launch, so that you exist when people look for you and they get a feel for you when
Right.
they're on it. But from that point onwards, if you have to hire someone to run your personality on behalf of you, I feel like a lot gets lost.
That's a
And that's
problem.
that's just not
Right.
the level that we necessarily resonate with or believe in. And I'm sure it's because we're not working on these massive global corporate brands that the
Mm-hmm.
CEO is not sitting
Mm-hmm.
tweeting his own stuff. But I do think we've been lucky, because the smaller brands are able to do that. And when it's you doing the dead
Mm.
account, that brand is so strong, because no one understands it as well as you do. I shouldn't understand your brand,
Right.
even though I do branding as well as you do. Like, it's your DNA. I
Mm-hmm.
just, like, add to it, or I just
Just a
kind of
consumer. Yeah.
make people picture it the way you picture it from the beginning, and we experience it the way you feel it. Um, but yeah, so look, nothing's coming off our Instagram and our nothing serious anyway, I don't think.
It's
But
through word of mouth.
yeah, it's more than anything else. It's through previous projects that we've done. I mean, we did one hotel.
Hard work and word of mouth.
Yeah, honestly, if 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 you if you really work hard and you really create something that's
Mm.
you're proud of, it's noticed, And I think, I mean, for instance,
Right.
Gorgeous George was the first hotel we ever worked on. We started sort of,
Right. I
it's
was
funny,
gonna ask you about that.
we basically, our work just becomes what the previous project was, So we got one restaurant, then because of that, we got another restaurant,
Right.
another restaurant, another restaurant. So it is that kind of word of mouth, It's just, and I think what we'll always try and do is
Mm.
we just, our way is just for us to even just not bore ourselves, is to do something a little bit interesting within reason for that client and their expectations and what they want to do. But I don't think you're ever going to get, if you're an Italian restaurant, for instance, the very expected Italian restaurant approach. Like we always try and just inject some quirk or some humor or something that makes you stop and steal the serviette. Like that happens in so many cases. But so we did one
Right.
hotel, and we ended up having 5 hotels this year after that, So
Crazy.
it really is
Wow.
just, if
That's
you make
amazing.
something impactful in that space that it's in, more will come of it.
Mm.
But I have to say, a lot of the
The
work
rest
we've
is
also
history.
gotten,
Yeah.
and like just an amazing relationship has been with the interior designer we often work with on sort of restaurants and shops and hotels and things like that. And that's Tristan Duplessis from Studio A. He sort of
Right.
found us like years ago, and he actually just wanted us to help with, he was doing a lot of restaurants and sort of spaces and houses, and a lot of the time he needed branding and signage and menus. He just wanted things that would actually complement what he was doing. And so he came across us from another small brand we'd done, and this was just a relationship that like totally took off. And it's been so unexpected, but it's been so amazing both ways, because we'll get a client like Now You See Me, and we'll pull him to do the interior. So the
Mm.
more
Mm.
it's like in-house approach to the whole thing, the more it doesn't feel disjointed.
100%.
And when you're
I
doing
totally get it.
spaces, I just want to come in. Like often we would come in, and then the whole everything's designed, and you just have to like do a brand with it. It should technically start with a brand. The brand should guide where the interior goes, because the brand is kind of is the
Right.
strategy of figuring out what you're about, who you're for, why you would be a certain way. So it's been so amazing, because we kind of work together. We're not afraid of stepping on each other's toes. No one's sensitive. Like we'll give him
Mm.
interior ideas, he'll give us branding
You
ideas,
already
but
know. Yeah.
most importantly, it's a partner that is constantly bringing work into our system, and work that we really enjoy doing, because it's really nice when there's a space that a brand lives in, and I guess the service industry lends itself to
Mm.
be quite most of the time. So that's been where a lot of our work has also come from, and we don't necessarily always do everything together, but it's been a relationship that's really like been mutually beneficial, and like we're on the same page, and we work really well together. And that's been for like probably 4-5 years now. So yeah,
Word.
that's
So it's
sometimes
basically
just
all
like,
about just building like very strong relationships with people that you work with,
yeah, I think like we we
basically.
always, we always collaborate. And I think another thing is also like I like to believe that we're quite pleasant to work with. We really, when we take something on,
Right.
you're going to get the very best that we can give out of it, and to a fault often. We kill ourselves doing, making sure it's right. And so when you're going to do that, or at least when you do that, those clients often are either bringing you more work, or they are only so happy to kind of um, say your name when something comes along.
Right. So Gorgeous George, hey. I really like what you guys did with the light close to the, I think it's the pool. I think that's like one of the standout points, because that's where everybody literally takes a picture. And that's the best way of where did that idea come from?
To
Like
be honest,
why Gorgeous? Like what light up Gorgeous specifically?
to be honest, I think that was Tristan's idea. So we did the logo, and initially our idea from the very first boards was to do one of those hotel signs, those very, very old school hotel signs that you see in like LA, you know, those like classic signs that are on stilts. And it was like, the idea for us was like this, you would have this massive sign that says hotel in this cool way that you'd see from like almost anywhere in the CBD. So that's where the idea started, was like there'd be a rooftop light like that. But I think Tristan's actually the one that took it. He made it in the font of the logo and put the word gorgeous at the pool. I think he's quite good also at knowing, sort of understanding like space and where in a space people are going to take photos, you know?
Right.
Because most of his spaces he's always considered these Instagram moments.
Right. I also think like that sometimes. Every time I have a pop-up, my mind always flips to what can I put in a place where a picture-worthy place. Like, I always think about picture-worthy moments, a picture-worthy placements. But anyway, look, what are the great, like, what are the sacrifices you guys or have you been through in order for Jana+Koos studio to be where it is today? What's one thing that you can think of that you had to sacrifice?
Look, I think we actually spoke about this the other day, because Jana+Koos is it's a true miracle that it's actually still alive. We've really almost closed our doors probably in the last 5 years at the end of every year. And that's what people don't realize or don't see. But, you know, it's been like being a good creative is one thing. Being a good business owner, when that's not a background that you come from and you don't actually know anything about, you're actually bad at it.
Right.
It's been really, really difficult for us, you know, like learning to manage cash flow and learning to sort of, we still haven't mastered the art of any of these things. So there's been many times that we've kind of gotten to, we've almost closed our doors. And I think, you know, just in terms of sacrifice, we've sacrificed a lot of time and a lot of personal time. And I think that most people who know me, and something that I carry a lot of guilt about, is that know that I'm made up of 99% my job. You know, there's like I'm just always busy and I'm always working, and I get a hell of a lot of fulfillment from it, and I enjoy all these things. But it really does, I often sit back and go like, is it healthy to be that, like, what else is there, you know? Is it healthy to be that tied to something, and there's a lot of time that's taken from family and from friends and from, you know, that's almost the thing I kind of feel you sacrifice the most when you're building a company, is that you can't just be everything for everyone that you would ordinarily like to be
100%.
in terms of your time. You know, just a lot of your time is, and energy and passion and whatever is poured into this, and then like the rest of the people around you get the leftovers of what remains, you know, the bad moods and the sleeping and whatever else.
Disappointment sometimes, the angriness.
No, it's taxing. It's really, 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 really taxing. I do think, you know, I also think that you kind of have to decide on what it is that you're going to do. And I mean, it's quite hilarious that I would say that, because obviously I do so many different things, but I think like I know that my priority is Jana+Koos. Then my, you know, that I can't, Beau Beau can't be a priority, and my art can't be a priority, and the kind of ceramics or whatever can't be a priority. Like they're always second in line to like the main goal. Because otherwise everything is watered down. So I would love in an alternate universe to sort of be able to put all my energy into a Beau Beau, for instance, everything, you know, because I've got so many ideas and I've got so much to give, and it comes so naturally. But it's a business like any other business. So there's these little like drops every now and again, when there's a drop, when there's an idea, when there's time. There are things that come and go, but I I think it is a case of having to. Time is the biggest thing, you know. There's been a hell of a lot of
Right.
time and energy sacrificed, and personal
Totally get you
relationships.
as well. Yeah. Totally get you. So now, before I get off to the other topics that I want us to tap into real quickly before time runs out, look, I only recently discovered that you guys worked on Alison Fifth. Am I correct?
Yes, so that
What the
was
hell
actually
inspired that? Like what the hell?
look,
I mean, that's some crazy ass. Wow.
that
Wow.
well, the nice thing about our job often is that you're not always, in fact, you're never designing for yourself. You know, sometimes you're designing in line
Right.
with you as the target market, which is easier, but sometimes you're designing for a place that you would literally never be able to afford to eat at, which is Alison Firth.
Right.
And how that job came about is that uh, Tristan came to us with that job. So that was a client of his that was doing this space, and they really wanted to do something that was kind of very different and very push the envelope of traditional burlesque sort of underground high end restaurant. And so we were quite excited to start working on it because we 100% it's a world that's not that familiar to us.
Right.
And I guess we just I don't know where, I don't remember where the idea came from, but they're on they're on the corner of Alice and Fifth Street. And we were like,
Right.
that's where the name Alice and Fifth came from, because we were like, there's actually so much opportunity. And a lot of what you don't always see what was presented. You see what the client took from that, you know, and what they liked from that. But Alice and Fifth was sort of meant to have this Alice character based on a sort of, call it Lady Gaga-esque version of the Alice in Wonderland character, you know. And that was
Literally
something that
one
could be
thing
used
every
in a
time
lot
I
of
hear
the.
that.
It what?
I mean, that's what hits every time I hear Alison Fifth. I always think of some fairy tale, happily ever after ending. I say.
Yes, and I mean how we sort of positioned it was actually like very much the opposite of that. You know, we wanted to do like this, like very sort of these sort of macabre and interesting and dark, just female character, and you'd maybe just see a glimpse of it, and some of the communication would say, "Who the fuck is Alice?" You know. So
Right.
there was there were so many legs to like building this character that could represent this place. Um, and we'd found a performer that's really amazing. Her name's Victoria Modesta. We sort of in our initial boards we presented um, her to be an artist that performs there at the opening night. You know, she's got like she's an
Right.
amputee, so she has the stilt, but she makes these crazy, like she's got the spike that she attaches to her leg. She's got this music video where she just walks around and little like slams the
Right.
spike in the ground and the ground cracks. Like for us, it was always like a place where it's just very otherworldly and fantastical and sort of heroing these like amazing performances that are not your everyday woman on a
Mm,
stage, you know. Um, so it was super interesting, and I mean, out of that came, uh, I think there wasn't budget to do something that we wanted to do on the walls or that Tristan wanted to do, so he sort of commissioned us to do some illustrations. So we did these sort of wallpaper illustrations on the inside. And the idea was that they would have a tattoo artist that sits there in one of the sort of booths where you could, at any time in the evening, get one of these little hand pokes or,
oh,
you know,
dope.
signature tattoos and things like that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of depth to it that I guess either doesn't happen or you don't necessarily get to, or the untrained eye
Right.
doesn't see. But yeah, it was a super interesting one for us.
Yeah, I mean, I love the finished product. I mean, when I read that you guys actually worked on that, I was blown because like I don't want to dumb you guys down or kind of make you guys seem like you're not very good at what you do, but every time I go into that space, it just has some sort of personality to it. You already feel like what you already feel the design, if you get what I mean. You already feel what they were trying to do. You already feel the kind of energy. You already feel the type of person they want in that space, just based off how it looks. And that it takes a vivid type of imagination and execution to do something like that, where someone walks into a room and they already feel that, yo, I don't belong in here. Oh, yes, I do. I look the part, etc., etc. You know. Um, but yeah,
More than
what are your
anything, I have to
what are your
say,
inspirations?
no, I was going to
No,
say
carry on.
before
Actually,
we end off on that one, I have to say that like Tristan made us look very good on that job on Alison Firth. You know, that's that's probably some of his best work, and he has amazing ideas. Like when you walk in, I mean, the thing that gives you that feeling is like you walk into this warped sort of mirror ceiling. You walk. He narrowed the hallway that you
yeah,
walk through, and you walk through this like long mirrored ceiling with like this kind of heartbeat soundtrack and this waviness that's starting to happen and the mirror reflections and things like that. Like
yeah.
we can't actually take credit for the work that he did in that place because it's you can't fault it, you know, like it's
No,
really sort
definitely
of.
you can't.
And I think that's
It's in a
I
league
love
of
a
its
space like
own.
that where you walk in and you have to almost be a different version of yourself there. It allows for, which was the client brief, you know, like it allows for you to like, you're someone else in here. You feel it immediately, as
Right,
you say.
right. Immediately, you really do. So, where do you get the majority of your influences? Like, what influences you, and what are your inspirations? Like, what inspires you?
Um, that's a good question. These days, I don't even know what I'm looking at when I'm not actually busy working. But I do. I mean, I I'm actually where I think I used to be very inspired by very already successful and I guess developed artists and creatives. I've always been,
Mm-hmm.
and Chris as well, you know, and I think that's why we found you. Like we've always been inspired by those guys that are like doing their thing regardless of the
Right.
fact that it seems ridiculous to everyone else, and regardless of the fact that like there's a way easier way through this
Mm,
life. But
mm.
um and that's where a lot of our friends have come from. That's why we've got friends like through the spectrum. um but I think the thing is like I've always loved fashion and I've loved clothing, and I think that that's like one area where like campaigns get to just be really, you know, it's not about strategy and it's not about direction. It's like someone has a vivid sort of idea and it can just be pushed, you know, like whether we're talking about like crazy
Right.
Gucci campaigns with like just I think the fashion world has always had a massive influence on me. um
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I I I really love art. I really actually don't look at a lot of design, to be honest, like a lot of traditional graphic design. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think like I'm mostly inspired and interested in people around me that are like pushing from their side, you know, where you can see there's like a
Right.
little head starting to come up of someone pushing, and like we'll always try, even though it's like a diamond in the rough, you know, like we just, now that we've worked with everyone from small up and coming to really established, it's super
Right.
inspiring to start knowing that you have the ability to spot talent, and then you have the ability to actually like help that talent be more of itself.
More of
um
itself.
and that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that inspires me. People like you really inspire me. Like I'll reach out if someone inspires me, you know. um we've got
Mm.
a young
True.
photographer that we often work with for personal projects. His name is Zander Opperman. Maybe you know him.
Mm-hmm.
And we just found him. Chris found him one day on Instagram, you know, and we could just see like his images were different. Like they weren't trying to fit a
Right.
mold. And I think when you come
Right.
from a place not really fitting a mold, even when you do try, to kind of embracing that, you start seeing that in other people, and that's inspiring. You
Right.
know, not necessarily always things that's my
Right.
taste as much. It's like this energy of people just doing their thing,
Doing things differently. Right.
and
Right.
yeah,
Just happens to
and
be
being
dope.
exactly, and being bold enough to experiment, or just putting themselves out there. You know, it's, I think people don't realize that it's not easy doing the kinds of things we do. And in your
Right.
case, either,
Not
like
at
we
all.
live in a very critical age.
Right.
So
Digital critical age.
the digital critical age. So when you're still willing to actually like do your thing in that digital critical age, it's really super inspiring. And I think people starting businesses and people building brands on whatever level really do inspire me. I guess that is what keeps us being able to do our job, because we almost get excited for them. We get excited for the fact that they're like doing this brave, bold new thing. Sorry, excuse me.
Not okay.
So yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Yeah, it actually is about it. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It was really a great pleasure speaking to you.
Oh, man,
Um,
same here.
hope to be in communication with you soon. But really,
Yeah,
this thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
fantastic.
And yeah, you
Good
guys
time.
are amazing, man. The work that you guys do is really out of this world. Really
Well,
out of
thank
this
you.
world.
Yes, and same to you. We've always got an eye on you. We'll
We will be in
like,
touch. Sorry, say that again, please.
do something together soon.
No, definitely. I will text you after this call and we'll get right, like we'll see what we can do.
Awesome, man. It was really good to
Thank you
chat.
so much. Enjoy this. It really was. It really was. It was amazing.
We can go on forever, hey?
Yeah, we can. We really can. But look, thank you so much for your time. So I guess I'll speak to you soon.
Absolute pleasure. Have a lovely day.
Okay.
Thanks, Bang.
Same to you.